Okay.
We're on.
Yep.
Okay, great. First, Posnet Barachsanya, thank you for opening up your home for this shear. And again, it's a sign of the times when we could have a weekday morning shear at 8:30, and people aren't like already at work, and people are, it just shows that sometimes we're our own balabas in post-corona, and where we work and how we work. But I thought that we talk about kind of a fun topic as you'll see, and it starts with the parsha that we just read last week. We're in the Parshias of Avram Avinu. So we'll start off with that question. Do you remember Avram Avinu comes back from the war of the four kings and the five kings, and he goes out and he goes to save his nephew. Amazingly, that he goes and risks his life, and he comes back, and finally the king of Sodom is so happy and says, Avram, you know what? I want to give you a present. Source number one. Just give me the captives, and you take all the stuff. I don't need any of the stuff. Just but the captives of the other nations. Avram turns to the Melech Dom and says, I swear. Harimosi yadi al Hashem kel elyon. And I lift up my hand. Right? It comes up like the fact that we lift up our hand when we swear. It comes from the Torah already. I lift up my hand in the name of God, Konei Shayim Varetz. In michud v'ad now from a shoelace. I'm not taking a shoelace from all the spoils that I got. I don't want you going around and say, you know what? I made Avram the man who he is. I gave Avram all the stuff. I'm not taking any asset from you. Biladai, except the people that came with me, they can take whatever they want. So the question is, the Chafetz Chaim asked this question, we'll see soon, was it appropriate or not appropriate to take the stuff from the battle? If there's kibush milchama, and if you win stuff, so then you should be able to take it. And if he doesn't think it's appropriate to take it, then why does he let his other, chevra take it? Was he being machmir, or was this me'ikar adin? So that leads us into the following discussion. We say on Erev Yom Kippur, hopefully if we get to shul in time for Tefillah Zaka, we try to get there, and we move most of the time, we don't finish it, and halavai we should even start it. We get there, and sometimes like during Kol Nidre, we're like catching up. That's okay. But in the Tefillah Zaka, besides the main part of Tefillah Zaka, there's a paragraph called the Vidui of Rabbeinu Nisim Gaon. The Vidui of Rabbeinu Nisim. Rabbeinu Nisim is one of the Gaonim. Everybody who has the last name Gaon is between those 500 to 1,000. Now those are Nisim Gaon, or Sadia Gaon, or Shura Gaon, or Pai Gaon. So Nisim Gaon has a Vidui, which we quote from. And we say in the Vidui, source number 2, how can I come in front of you, Hashem? What kind of healing could I ask? Like a rebellious son I've been. Like somebody who's rebelled against his master. Like a student who has argued with his Rebbe. And here we go. I've messed up Tumah V'Tara. What you said is Tameh. I've said Tar, Tameh, which is neither of those are good, because if I say, I'm going to treat it as Tameh, then I'm going to burn Truma. Eis Asher Hitarta Asarti, Vasher Asarti Hitarti. What you have said is Mutter, I've said is Aser. What you have said Aser, I've said Mutter. I've messed up halacha. But then look at the next line. Eis Asher Hekalta Hechmarti. Vasher Hechmarta Hekalti. Where you have said to be Machmir, I have been Mekel. Where you have said to be Mekel, I've been Machmir. There seems to be a separate category of Chumra and Kula, separate from Aser and Mutter. Aser and Mutter, we did what's wrong or not wrong, but there seems to be a separate category of there are appropriate times that we're supposed to be Machmir, and appropriate times where we're supposed to be Mekel. Right? So what is, if we say that as the Vidu and Erev Yom Kippur, then maybe it's appropriate for us every once in a while, that's what we're just going to do for the next little while, to talk about, okay, so what's an appropriate Chumrah? What's an appropriate Kula? When should we, what kind of attitude should we have in life in terms of Chumrah and Kula? And if you look at general evidence, and this is all by way of introduction, if you look at general evidence, there seems to be evidence on both sides. If I were to ask you, is it good to be Mach or is it good to be Mekel? So, there are some people just that their personality is one or the other. That's true. Or I might say certain hashkafis olams, in certain yeshivas, are one way or the other. But we're not going to try to get political at all. We're trying to just Focus on the sources. So if you look just generally, on the one hand, there seems to be an attitude in Chazal of, yeah, it's a good thing. Be machmir. Take upon yourself extra. Right? What does the first mission in Pirkei Avos say? Moshe Kibbutz Torah Sinai, the first thing that the Anshe Gedolah said, Himamru Shlosha Dvarim, have you mitunim badin, be patient in judgment, vehemidu talmidim harbe, have many students, va'asu siag laTorah, make fences. Fences are good. The Rabbeinu Yonah on there, that Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, va'asiag hu davar gadol u'meshubach. Siag is a great thing. A fence law is a great thing. So you don't fall in. If we fulfill the fence laws, that's even a greater reflection of love. If we follow what God told us to do, okay, that's one thing. If we go above and beyond, that really shows we're into it. Right? If we show up at the game to do regular practice, that's one. If I come an hour early, take extra batting practice, that shows I'm really focused. I really want it. If I do extra stuff, that shows I'm really in the zone. And the Ramban, very famously, beginning of Kedoshim, I think we had a shir last year about the definition of Kedusha. Pretty sure we had it in this forum. The Ramban talks about Kedoshim Tiyu means you can't just do what you have to do. There has to be a little bit beyond. The Ramban says, Le'anyan in source 5, Ki Torah his hira ba'arayos, uba ma'achalos asurim. The Torah forbids arayos and foods, certain foods. Ve'tira bi'ish vishto. The Torah says this is asur, this is mutter. This is allowed a relationship. This is not allowed. This is food. This is not food. Imkain. This is food that you can eat, can't eat. Imsa. It could be that a person could not violate any sifkatan in the Shulchan Aruch or the Mishnah Berurah and not live a sanctified life, says the Ramban. I could eat fleishiks 3 times a day. I could do whatever. What am I violating? Where does it say in the Shulchan Aruch this is asur? Says the Ramban. That's why after all of the 365 los assays, the Torah also adds, besides that, be holy. Kedoshim tihiyu. V'tziva b'davar klali sheni aprushim min hamutaros. Yemait b'mishagel. Don't go overboard with certain behaviors. So if you stop there and we end the shir right now, we're like, okay, be machmir, asusiag b'Torah, more the merrier. But we have just as much evidence on the other side. Just much evidence that, you know what? Just do what you have to do. And maybe it's not so good to go above and beyond. The Rambam, and we'd rather not say that this is a machlokas, right? About life. There could be different sensitivities, Rambam and the Ramban, about how do you view a Nazir, but we'd rather not say. We'd rather take one unified message from all of these sources. But on the surface, these are the Rambam and Hilchos Deos, where the Rambam talks about, as you probably remember, the Rambam always talks about balance and middle of the road, and that's what you're always supposed to do, says the Rambam. Shema Yomer Ha'adam, Hova Kinevatav. Since jealousy and Taivan covet is a derech ra, and first we have I should go to an extreme and not eat well and not protect myself well and sleep in the cold. Says no. The Rambam says it's enough what 365 what Hashem already told you to do. Amru Chachamim, where it's underlined. Uma'im Nazir. The Rambam says that if you look closely, the Nazir brings a carbon chatas when he finishes being a Nazirus. Why is that? So the Rambam's view is based on the Shita in the of the Tanaim. Uma'im Nazir shlo pirush element ayayin. A Nazir who withheld himself from wine, tzarach kapara, needs atonement for that sin of not enjoying God's world. If I withhold myself from anything else, kal v'chomer, it's terrible. Do you have 365 things you can't do? Focus on those. We don't need extra. Now let's focus on what we have to do, and then after that we'll talk. There's a different sense than asusiag laTorah. Different sense. Kedoshim tiyu. The Rambam also believed in Kedusha, right? There's a whole sefer called Sefer Kedusha, right? Where he has Machalos Asuros and Isurei Bia and Shchita. And again, last source, by way of introduction, we just had, a couple of weeks ago, we had Sukkot. Was it raining here the first night of Sukkot?
No.
No?
I thought it was second night.
Most often it rains the first night.
Yeah.
It was not raining in Israel. But the Ramah talks about, Ramah in Poland quotes the Yerushalmi, who says, you know what? Those who want to sit in the sukkah when it's pouring rain, I'm sitting in the sukkah anyway. He says, you're a fool. The Ramah says, Nikra Hedyot. Okay, there are differences the first night and in the first night, you Kazayas, even with that, maybe there's no Patur star on the first night. Let's say the fourth night of Sukkot. It's pouring. Go inside. Don't be machmir. So how are we supposed to understand this? Chumrah and Kula, how are we supposed to understand this? So what are the rules? What are the regulations? So a note before we start. Everything we're talking now is about, is it appropriate to have chumrah or not? If something is a suffix in din, that's not called chumrah. I'm not sure if this is kosher. You know what? I'll be machmir. That's not called chumrah. That's called suffix din. And of course, you have to be machmir there. That's not being machmir. That's just protecting because you might be violating. That's not what we're talking about here. If there's a suffix about what to do. I don't want to get into it. How many hours ago was it? About 4.5 hours ago when they served me breakfast on the plane. So she comes, this woman comes to me and puts it down. And you're like, that roll is mizonot. But if you want a hamotzi roll, I can give you from like the more fresh ones. I don't want to get into it that I think you have to watch on these either also, but I'm like, I'll take a fresh one too. But if I'm not sure, but if I hold that you have to wash, that's not called chumrah. I'm going to be machmir and get up and wash with those little cups that they have now. But no, that's did. If I think that appropriate bracha on pieces, hamotzi, I'll be machmir or mekel. No, if I think this is the appropriate bracha. If it's not, it's not. So whenever you have a chumrah and a kula, how long to keep Shabbos on, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about today is, for sure it's not halacha. For sure it's whatever the behavior, from now on, I'm gonna be machmir and come to shul 5 minutes before davening. Whatever davening is, I'm gonna be sitting in shul 5 minutes before davening to get in the mindset. Some people might call that halacha, but let's say it's not. Let's say it's not. I want to say the Tehillim Yomi every day of the month. I'm gonna start that. That's not a din. So is that appropriate? Is there anything wrong with that? Anything wrong with anything? Davening starting to daven vasikin, right? Me'ikar hadin, you don't have to daven vasikin. I was this morning we got to daven vasikin. I always find it so. I guess because I don't do it that often, it's like always so exciting. It's like, and the shul that we went to had this countdown. It had the time, and it also had how many minutes left. It was counting down. You see, it's like, it's so exciting. And then you get there, and it's like he's up to Ezra Savaseinu. He's like, I still got 2 minutes. It's like he's got to go slow in this Ezra Savaseinu. And then you see why, and then Michamo, but it's like 5, 4, 3. So that's I want to dive in vasikin. Is that all? Is that fine? Why would it be? Why would anything be wrong? Here we go.
But on Nida, there is chumrah kula.
But once a chumrah is put into shulchan aruch, it's no longer a chumrah. If something was basar of b'chalav is a chumrah d'Rabbanan,
right?
But it's that's right. They've institutionalized it, and codified it. Is really the better word. Okay, so here we go. So our attitude is going to be, if there is a behavior, if there is something that I think would bring me closer to Hashem, I'm not doing it for kavod. I'm not doing it to be noticed by everybody else. I'm doing it l'shem shamayim. So our starting point will be great, wonderful, amazing. Go for it. If you're doing it for the right reasons and you're doing it, but there are just 5 things that you have to just think about before the final decision is made. That's our shir today. These 5 things. Again, so it's not going to be a pro or con. It's going to be if you think that this behavior is good for you and for your avodas Hashem, amazing, wonderful, but keep 5 things in mind. Okay, number one. If the chumrah, let's call it, is up against another halacha or Jewish value, then it could be that it's not appropriate. We're going to start off with some extreme examples, and then we'll get to some less extreme examples. The Mishnah in Sota says, source number 8. Hu hayomer. Chassid shoteh, that's the only one that's born for us now. A foolish, pious person, among others, harailu mavali olam, they destroy the world. Who is a foolish, pious person? Chassid shoteh. Right? It's a phrase that they use, chassid shota, but it's in the Mishnah. What's a chassid shota? Bavli Yerushalmi. The Bavli says, source 9, Hu ayomer chassid shota, yadem chassid shota, going to tava itza benara, va'amar lava rachar l'stakuli bevatzule. I'm a lifeguard. I happen to be walking on the boardwalk, and all of a sudden I see a woman drowning in the sea. And I say, oh, she's like, help, I love you, but not sneeze. What are you wearing? So that's not an example of chumrah, because it is a din about a man seeing a woman undressed. But the message, the idea of, the counterbalance, pikuach nefesh, hello, pikuach nefesh overrides. Or the Tosfos, and so of course the Yerushalmi there. Similar, Tina Gvavaya Benar, a child is drowning in the river. Amar, L'kashechlotz tefillin atzalenu. I just got to take off my tefillin. I don't want to get them wet. I'm very careful about my tefillin. I never shower in the morning. I'm always. So again, that's not an exact good example, because it's a din to take care of my tefillin. But the idea of the opposite of the a chumrah behavior, stepping on another halachic value, is a limiting factor. A little more down to earth, getting back to the Sukkahs, the Shvus Yaakov, 1700s. Yaakov Reisher in source 11 was discussed. Taf Pei Gimel, 17. What year is that? 1723. 1720. You always add, if you know the century, you just add 40 years, and then you get the English, right? What are we in now? Tav Shin Pei Vav. So Pei is 86. So add 40, 26. So it's going to be 2026. Right? As long as you know the century, then you could get the year. Just add 40. Anyway, so he was asked what to do the first night of Sukkot. It's pouring in Poland, and how long do you have to wait in the Sukkah for wait in your house to eat? So he says some people asked him that they were waited, most of the night. Right? Nishalti ketzad yishlino ki ksas ratzu lomar. Some wanted to say shiamtinu masuda ad kor lachatzos alayla. Some wanted to wait till chatzos. Some wanted to eat in the sukkah when it was raining. Says the Shus Yaakov Tshuva. Lo yadati echmolu libam la'asos kain l'schakem yoser mechachamenu. Right? Says the Shus Yaakov. How were these people trying to outsmart the rabbis? More than poskim say. There are certain rules of how long you have to wait. They want to wait even more. And the key line for us now, so if you look in the continuation in the second paragraph, or the end of the first one, if you wait and say, we're not eating it, the forecast said at 1:30 in the morning it's going to stop. If you're not going to eat till then, there's no greater minia, withholding of simchas yantif, more than this. Meaning you're being machmer for sukkah, but there's something called simchas yantif. Your kids are going crazy, right? There's a mitzvah to make them happy on yantif, to make the family, right? Minia simchas yantif. No chumrah if it's coming on the shoes and rejecting a different value or halacha. Rav Shvadron, at the Maggid of Yerushalayim, there's maybe years ago, I read it, and he has a story in there that one time he was traveling in England before Pesach for whatever reason, and he knew he might get stuck there. So he brought his own matzah. And then he got stuck there for Pesach. So he went into shul like a day before Pesach, and I was trying to find a place to stay. So he goes to the first person, I'm a rabbi from Yerushalayim, and I'm looking for a place to stay for Pesach. I even brought my own matzah. So he said the first person looks at him and says, I'd love to have you, but what kind of matzah do you have? So you can't bring those big white boxes. So yeah, like a machine matzah. Machine matzah is like chametz in my house. So I'm sorry. He asked the next person, he says, the fourth person allowed him if he would put like a plastic sheet under where he sits, and he sits on the side. So he writes there, he says, I understand, little chachilo, you want hand shmura, but a chumra in the face of achnos zarchim, in the face of the another value, that's inappropriate. So number one, if the behavior is up against another halachic value, it could be an inappropriate chumra. Number one. Number two, and some of these overlap. Number two, if the chumra will negatively affect someone else. stepping on their toes, so then it could be an inappropriate chomer. And this we learn, getting back to Avram Avinu. The Chavetz Chaim says on last week's parsha, Avram Avinu says, I'm not taking any spoils. He could take spoils. He won the war. He could take whatever he wanted. I'm not taking any spoils, but whoever was with me, feel free, they could take. What does that mean? Avram Avinu was going to be machmer for himself, but it wasn't going to be machmer on anybody else's toes. Says the Chavetz Chaim in source 12, Lo lamdeinu shela'atzmo hechmir Avram Avinu biyoser mi beli lanos mi melech stone. For himself he was machmir. Ulam benogel lena'arim v'anashim shaholchu ito. For everybody else who went with him, lahem lo hechmir. He wasn't machmir for them. Heim yichlu chalkam. They could take whatever they want. La'mencha sherishus bi'ad kolecha la'achmir la'atzmo v'lo la'acher. Boom, he says it. You're going to be machmir in something, that's fine, but not la'achir. Where does this come up in my life? So here's a Gemara in Brachas. We all know the end of the story from the Haggadah. Remember the story? Rabbi Gamliel insulted Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Gamliel had to be removed from the Nisius. So he was removed and they had to find the new chief rabbi. So they said, oh, how about Rabbi Yeshua? No, he's the Baal Maisa. He was the one that's too personal. Rabbi Akiva doesn't have yichus. Rabbi Elazar Nazar. They decided Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, he's our man. So they send a rabbinic entourage to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's door to invite him to be the chief rabbi. And that's where we pick up the story in the middle of 5. Asu v'amrile, nichale lamar de Levi reish mesifta, nu, you want to be our chief rabbi? What should his answer be? I've been waiting for this call all my life. I've been waiting for the phone. Thank you finally for coming. Yes, when do I start? What's his answer? I have to go ask my wife. I have to go ask my wife. What do you ask your wife for? What does your wife have to do with being the chief rabbi? She's not the chief rabbi. You're the chief rabbi. That's what the Mefarshim explained. This isn't a chumrah, but it's still, you're trying to get ahead in your avodas Hashem, your spirituality. If you're the chief rabbi, you're not going to be home for bath time as much as you usually are. You're going to be taking trips. You're stepping on your wife's toes. So you want to get ahead, that's fine, but you can't do it without her permission. Right? All of a sudden, I decide, I want to have a night seder. I'm going to have a night seder. No problem, just 5:30 to 8. I really want to get into, I want to know Shas cold. So honey, 5:30 to 8 is okay. I'm going to be in the base medrash. Obviously that's what you want, right? You believe in learning Torah. So do I. I want. And she'll bite her lip and say, okay, but that's not, you want to have a night seder? Okay, go from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. Feel free. After all the kids are sleeping and bathed and the food is, the kitchen's cleaned up, feel free. Go have a night seder. But you can't do that if it's stepping on somebody else's toe. Again, there has to be a balance, and it was spoken about. Remember the story? He goes to ask his wife. What does his wife say? What do you need this for? Maybe they'll fire you tomorrow. He says, better to be a glass kli for one day than an earthenware kli all my life. And then she says, but you don't have a white beard. So overnight, miraculously, we were a white beard, hare ani, kiven shivim shana. Right, that's the end of the, but again, this is the example.
Never said if she actually said yes.
What?
The Gemara never finishes if she actually said yes. She just
He became. So there was nothing else to argue with. I remember years ago, my wife told me, I have a story for your chumrah shir. She came home from work one day and she said there was this, my wife's a pediatrician, that she came home and there was this baby with like all these types of rashes. And she was talking to the father about, this and that, what it could be, what he could be allergic to. And she realized and found out that it was some type of formula. One of the formulas, so my wife said, so just switch, use the other formula. It's like, no, I would never. Why? It's like, stop. So my wife says, your baby's suffering. Moshe Feinstein is not good enough? Yeah, okay, fine, I understand. Stop. Like, look at your child, right? He's having allergic reactions. Number 2, being machmir on the, again, this is not a bashing this or a bashing that. We're just saying if something is appropriate and it's going to bring you closer to Hashem. I don't know, I want to start wearing a davening jacket. I want to, whatever. Have a, whatever it is. There's so many different, I want to start Shabbos 5 minutes earlier. All these amazing, wonderful, I want to be more makpid on making sure that's not a halacha. But taking Malava Malka seriously. I was going to say Shal Shudas, but that's not a chumrah, that's a halacha. But people think it's a chumrah.
Not in the wintertime.
What? All you have to have is one slice of challah, just like that. That's it. It's amazing because right after Abdallah, I could have 3 slices of pizza, right? So it's not like my stomach is not there. It's all attitude. Okay, number 2. So number 1, it can't go up against any other halakhic value. Number 2, it can negatively affect others. Number 3. If it's a chumrah, if it's a behavior that might single me out in an inappropriate way, then it can be an inappropriate behavior. This is the trickiest one to put our finger on. Sometimes it's called mechzi yuharah, right? It looks like arrogance, right? Sometimes it's called la'ag. It's a little rubbed out, but the Yerushalmi in Brachas tells a story that in the days of old, when during the rainy season, there was an understanding that you were allowed, because the whole road was mud. So you were allowed to walk on people's property, so that people understood it, because you don't want to be in the mud. So there was one rabbi there were 2 rabbis standing, and they see from far there was one rabbi walking in the middle of the street with boots, picking up their feet, stepping in the mud. And one of them says to the other one, "Who is that who is bringing undue attention to himself?" And the other one says, "Oh, it's so and so," which everybody knows he already lives on a different standard. But the implicit message is that if it wasn't that person, it would be inappropriate. So this is tricky because it might depend based on times and based on place. Appropriate behavior for a Purim Suda when you're in yeshiva might be different than appropriate behavior for a Purim Suda when you're home with your kids. Right? There's a difference. It's even in the Mishnah in Brachas and Tosfos. Did I give it to you? Yeah. Turn the page. 17, 18. 17. The Mishnah says in Brachas, does a chassan say Kriya Shema on the first night when he's married? So the Mishnah says, chassan and Ratzah Likros Kriya Shema Lala Rishon Koreh. Yeah, he can if he wants, even though there's other stuff on his mind. Rav Shimon Gamliel Omer, no way. Lo kol harotzah litol Hashem ito. You can't. What? You're going to say Kriya Shema as if you're saying, I could have kavana. I'm good. I know I have other things in my mind, but I'm going to have kavana. You can't say Kriya Shema. That's mechzi yuharah. Says Rav Shimon Gamliel, you can't say Kriya Shema. Says Tosfos on that Mishnah, and Bisman Hazeh, exactly the opposite. You have to say Kriya Shema. What, you're not going to say Kriya Shema? Guys, I have kavana every single night of my life. But you know what? Tonight I can't. No, say Kriya Shema because we never have kavana, says Tosfos. So, and if you don't say Kriya Shema, that's mechzi yuharah. So the same exact issue, but it just depends on circumstance. So it's a tough one to pin down, but this is again mechzi yuharah, an idea. Rav Moshe has a tshuva, a long tshuva in source 19. I just give you one paragraph where he talks about that's the cherry cask tshuva, blended whiskey and cherry casks. So he wrote this. You see, Rav Pinchas Teitz. He wrote this. Agon Avezdin de Elizabeth, right? That so Rav Moshe wrote this tshuva, and he writes there after the beginning of the whole tshuva. He says, even though I'm machmer by myself, when I'm amongst others, I drink it. Because he can have a personal chumrah, but if it's going to single one out, then it could be inappropriate. Okay, number 3. Again, that one probably has to be asked to Shiloh about. Sometimes you have to ask other people around you, how do I, the post can discuss about wearing, now it's pretty common, but wearing tzitzis out, in a non-Jewish environment. Is that, or even not in a non-Jewish environment. There's so many examples of this. Okay, number 3. Number 4, 4 out of 5. Number 4, the behavior has to be appropriate for where I'm holding in life. If it doesn't fit where I'm up to, Avodas Hashem is a step-by-step, ladder. Let's say if I'm speaking Lashon Hara all day, and I'm not having kavana in this, and I'm working on my shalom bayis. So getting up at midnight davening for the Beis Hamikdash probably is not the next thing on my list. It's wonderful to cry for the Beis Hamikdash. Just say Shir HaMalos and Anaharas Bavel. Let's start with that during the meals. But the behaviors have to fit who I am. Bali Musser gave an example of, imagine, I met somebody on the plane. Getting onto the plane, I met somebody this morning that I try to keep a low profile, that nobody knows me. Last year I was sitting next to somebody, he didn't know who I was, but he was listening to my shir on LL. He was like, my picture was on the screen. I said, I hope he doesn't look left. But anyway, so I try to keep, so I'm getting on. So this guy happened to know, whatever. So he's like, oh yeah. I said, no pictures of my pajamas. I said, the only way I could sleep is like I changed it to a t-shirt and whatever. So the Bali Musser say, if you're in pajamas and you put on a tie, it just doesn't fit. A tie could fit a suit, but a tie can't fit pajamas. That's this. It has to fit. And it comes from a Gemara. Mar Ukva, source 20. Anaha Milsa, Chala Bar Chamar Lagabi Abba. Mar Ukva says, I'm like vinegar compared to my father who's like wine. I'm vinegar. I'm not as good. Dilo Abba, Kiavi Achal Bisra Ha'idna. My father, when he would eat meat, when he would eat fleishiks, Lo Havi Achal Gvina Ava Machar and Hashta. He would wait 24 hours between fleishiks and milchiks. Vilo Anami, I just wait to the next Suda. Bahasu Dasu Dilo Achilna. Just for the next, right? I wait to the next meal. By the way, this is the only line in all of Shas about how many hours to wait. That's why it's so long. It says, I wait to the next meal. Last week, my 14-year-old said, Abba, why do we wait 6 hours? I said, because that's what most poskim say to do. Almost always shown him. He's like, so many kids in my class wait 3. I said, did their fathers wait 3? Did their grandfathers wait 3? I can't. Were they all born in Germany, right? But I find that hard to. But anyway, but Rovi showed him say, okay. But this is where so Mar Ukva says, I'm like vinegar compared to my father who's like wine. He waits 24 hours, I wait 6. Question, the Bali Musar asked, if Mar Ukva, this is Mar Ukva was one of the greatest rabbis. Remember the Gemara in Ksubis? He's the one that used to give anonymous staka, and when he didn't want the ani to see, so he ran away, and he and his wife jumped into the oven so that nobody would see him. So this is Mar Ukva. So what? He couldn't wait the 24 hours. If he thought it was appropriate to wait 24 hours, why didn't he wait 24 hours? Why did he had to have the ice cream? No, because Rav Sternbach explains and others, because he knew that a behavior didn't fit his life. It wasn't appropriate for looking at the whole, we have to be honest and know what's the next step. Again, we can't underestimate ourselves and say, I'm coming to shul on time. That's just not me. I'm not there yet. No, we're all, we can't be dishonest. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh even says, you have it there in source 22. If you've never seen it, just open up the first pasuk of Parashat Bechukosai. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh is in every Mikros Gedolos. He gives 42 pshatim to the first pasuk in Bechukosai. So this is number 6 in 22, right? Number 6. He talks about that, it says in Pirkei Avos, Lo Am Haaretz Chassid. So we usually translate that to mean, if you don't know anything, if you don't know anything about Hilchos Shabbos, you can't keep Shabbos. Lo Am Haaretz Chassid. An Am Haaretz can't be a Chassid. He said, no, it means an Am Haaretz shouldn't be a Chassid. Wherever we are. In Bechukosai Telechu, if you do what you're supposed to, then it's Nitzvosai Tishmor, you could have extra shmiras. So also, sometimes we have to ask our rabbinic leaders and people that we look up to, what do you think of this? Is this a good thing for me to take on? Is this, and sometimes people jump steps, especially our youth sometimes. Some of our youth who go study in yeshiva and then all of a sudden, a week later, there's sometimes outward change, but the inner change hasn't followed. So this will be very wary and know that everything has to be real and honest and go step by step. Number 4. Okay, so number 1, we said can't go against any other halachic value. Number 2, can't step on anybody else's toes. Number 3, can't single me out. Mechzi, yuharah. Number 4, it's got to fit my life, my spiritual life. 5, 5th and final point, and that we learn from Chava, from Isha. Rav Hirsch says, and others say, You have it there in 25. History would have been different. Isha said to the Nachash, Hashem told me not to eat from the tree and not to touch the tree. Says Rav Hirsch, this is the first concept of a siyag in history. Great idea. If there's something that's usher to eat, it's good not to have it in the house. It's good not to handle it. That's great. But the problem was that she said, Hashem told me not to eat and not to touch. She blurred the lines between the din and the chum. She blurred the lines between the din d'oraisa and the din d'rabbanan, so to speak. And if the lines are blurred, that's very dangerous, because then once the siyag falls away, the whole thing will fall away. Rav Hirsch says, if we place, they warned us not to exaggerate and to set the fence too high, lest it fall in and destroy the plants it was placed in to protect. Right? If she would have said, Hashem told me not to eat from the tree, and I'm not even going to touch the tree, that would have been great. Would have been fine. Want us to make sure, though, that they don't make chumras into halachas. I remember more than once, right? Somebody, actually, I tell you, more recently, one of my kids was, he got home from a TO, and we got home late, and he called up, and he says, Abba, he says, should I go straight to Meyer if it's like the last one around? I'm just wearing a t-shirt and shorts, I'm kind of like, whatever. And if not, I'll just go and shower and then daven at home. What do you say?
Go in a minute.
What do you say? So I said, it's not a perfect example because you're supposed to dress properly.
Is the shul very
right? So that's a good question. So this one would be okay. It would be okay.
IPM, yes. Borough Park, maybe not.
Right. It's okay. So I said I said also just for chinuch purposes. I said teach them go to shul.
I'd be afraid to shower and fall asleep and just
right. Whatever it is, I said go. Years ago, I remember somebody asked me a similar question. Says Rabbi, somebody who usually like to wear a hat. Rabbi, if I go get my hat on this baruch hu. So I said, get baruch hu. So again, if I know some people might say otherwise, but that was my. But another example of, again, don't blur the lines between a chumrah and a din. There's chumrah. Okay, I bet I want to have a davening jacket, whatever it is. But if I'm going to miss half the davening, saying baruch hu v'chulu, that would be okay. So those are the five, so to speak, conditions and things to think about. So again, there's no pro and con. If there is a behavior that's l'shem shamayim that I think would bring me closer to Hashem, wonderful, do it, amazing, but keep these five things in mind. And one final note, and that is, we learn from the Mishnah in Yevamos. Mishnah in Yevamos says that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel argued about very serious stuff, very serious, mamzeris issues, yibum issues, but their families married into each other, right? Which reflects Abba v'Yachva v'Reus. Whatever our opinion is, there's a human thing to feel like my behavior is the perfect behavior. If somebody is machmir in a certain area, they're too machmir, and somebody's more makel than me, then they're too makel. It's kind of like when we finish Shmona Esrei, that's the perfect exact length of time that Shmona Esrei is supposed to take. If I look around and people are still shuckling, like, what's taking so long? Right? And if people, like, how things not happening so fast? My speed is God's speed. Right? But we learn from Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, no matter what we choose in a certain area, we have to look to the sides and respect. If I'm machmir in a certain regard, I shouldn't look at the other person and think they're not from. And if I'm makel in a certain area, I shouldn't look and think that wow, what frummies. We have to recognize we have to do our own thing. I think I don't know if I mentioned this a couple of months ago, but I remember in August, I took two of my boys before they started yeshiva. My son actually is this Sunday. He's he has a kibush for a week to figure out which unit in the army he's going to be. So we went out for a day and for a hotel one night, and then I took him we're sitting at breakfast the next day in some restaurant, and all of a sudden we hear from next to us, I forgot how Sfardim start their benching. That's like Aliyah. All of a sudden, but I'm saying all of a sudden we hear Zimun, but we all know that we saw those guys a second ago. There's four guys there. One guy with the kippah, the other three guys, big guys, they don't look like they'd be doing a zimun. So all of a sudden, we all turned around. We see the one guy leading a zimun, and the other three guys are like this. They're like this because they don't have a yarmulke. They want to be covered. They're like this. So we're like looking. the guy said the entire benching, the entire through Yechasreinu, and they're like this the entire time, like 5 minutes. It was like, it felt like in Kamam Yisrael. Like it was such a deep feeling, like okay, they're being makel and how they drip, but there's a pintel yid in there. We're not there to judge anything. It's not exactly connected, but it's like you look to the left and look to the right. Just worry about ourselves. Everybody should be able to do what they can, B'ez Hashem, and do their best in their avodas Hashem. Okay, thank you for making time, and shkoyach. I'm glad now I see you on the train. I'm good. Okay, Baruch Hashem.
I made the train.
Okay, Jeremy, thank you for listening. Shkoyach.
Did they make the trade?
Yeah.